it's been really important to just identify and implement strategies to further DE&I and really being able to have the opportunity to empower underrepresented groups, because I know from personal experience what it's like to be from an underrepresented group.
Hi, I'm Shannon Lucas. I'm one of the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to catalyzing innate change makers to accelerate positive change.
And I'm Justin Scott Campbell. I am a DEI consultant and leadership executive coach.
This is our podcast, Catalyzing a Culture of Inclusion,
where we highlight catalysts who have taken the brave step of moving into diversity, equity, and inclusion leadership in large organizations.
I'm so excited today to introduce Chris Williams. He's the Global Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at CBRE. He oversees the company's DEI efforts across its global workplace solutions business. He's working with over 68,000 employees in over 100 countries. Until most recently, he had the pleasure of being the co-chair of the Race, Ethnicity, and Cultural Heritage Group Network, REACH, and also the chair of the Christian Group, part of the Faith Network. As a Black British employee with Caribbean parents, he's very passionate about creating environments where people can thrive by strengthening an inclusive culture, increasing workforce diversity, and spending with diverse suppliers. His career at CBRE spans over 6 years, and he's proud of having experienced in 3 of the CBRE GWS lines of business. He's received an executive MBA from Aston University in 2021. Welcome, Chris. I'm thrilled to have you here today.
And I'm also thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's start off by, hearing about you as a DEI practitioner and how you relate to the concept of catalyst.
Yeah, so, I relate really strongly with this, because I strive to see positive changes, both in CBRE and in the industry. I've come into the industry knowing what it's like to be the only Black person in a room, and being the only Black person visiting the customer, from different businesses. So for me, it's been really important to just identify and implement strategies to further DE&I and really being able to have the opportunity to empower underrepresented groups, because I know from personal experience what it's like to be from an underrepresented group, and really just seeing my organization also as a catalyst for change in the communities that we operate in globally. So it really resonates with me, and I'm just so glad to have met you and made this connection.
Likewise, and it sounds like in typical Catalyst fashion, before you even had this big official massive role, you were already doing it as part of your side hustle, your passion project, whatever it was, in addition to your day job. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's on the side of the desk, doing stuff from an employee business resource group perspective. And I was telling somebody recently that it was probably when I was 10 years old that I started to get involved and understand D&I. And it was a sad story, really. My brother got stabbed multiple times in his back just because he was walking down the street with a white lady. He's alive now to tell the tale, but that kind of made me realize that some people are treated differently just because of the way they look.
Horrific story. I love you turning that horrific story into positive purpose to create change.
Yeah. Thank you.
So tell us, with your experience, we want to be able to support, the other DEI practitioners and allies and up and coming catalysts. Or what are one or two of the skills that have made you successful as a catalyst leading DEI, and maybe some of the stories that have helped you? And of course, also, we've often learned by failure. So if there's a time that you wished you had the skills and didn't have them, that's also a good lesson learned.
Yeah, so, for me, effective communication skills is really important. Not just communication skills, but effective, and I've probably got a load of stories that would probably take a couple of hours to go through of when I've been ineffective, but for me, the ability to communicate to a diverse audience, there's just not a one size fits all. You've got to be able to read the audience and see the cues that they give. Are they leaning into what you're saying, or are they leaning away and not paying attention? And really utilizing active listening, and sometimes playing back, okay, Shannon, I heard you say this, or or Justin, I heard you mention this, is that correct?
Mhm.
And really
Mhm.
being able to give clear expressions of ideas, you know, not just high level overviews, but really being able to explain some of the ideas that I'm sharing with people, and not assuming that it translates culturally across different barriers and divides, and really tailoring the messages off of the back of that to different contexts and audiences. And I remember, you know, the story I just shared about my brother, I used that story recently. I had 5 minutes to speak to a conference with over 300 people. And I was like, how am I going to get their attention in 5 minutes? It's just after lunch. They're all going to be yawning and tired. And let me draw on this experience of when I was younger. And you know, surely when I mentioned that story, just like I did with you too, it got the attention. It was like, oh, wow. Let's stand by our beds. Let's stand by attention, you know. And for me, it's really being able to read the audience and know I need to do something here to get someone's attention. And sometimes it might be giving somebody a fact, or maybe injecting a little bit of humor, but really being able to be flexible. Another example would be just being collaborative and teamwork. You know, it's just so important, you know, to just have that ability. No man is an island. My parents used to keep telling me, you know, you can't do it all yourself. Being able to build strong, diverse teams, being able to navigate through a complex organization like CBRE. And by the way, I tell people that CBRE stands for Chris Brings Real Energy, you know, and I try to do that. And I hope I'm doing that today. But really being able to navigate through complex organizational structures, that requires collaboration and teamwork, and just building strong relationships with stakeholders at all levels. Really, really, really important. And that's assisted me, you know, times when I've been able to navigate through the business because I know somebody and I can pick up the phone and say, hey, you know, who do I need to connect with on this or on that? It's really shortcutted some things that could have taken weeks to do, but knowing the right person to speak to and collaborate with has just opened doors for me.
Those are two super important skills to bring up. I have questions about both, but I'll start with the last one. I'll give you the two questions. You can pick which one you want to do first. One is, as you're doing this and you're building like the teams and creating the diverse teams across the organization, my guess is that a lot of people are helping you, again, sort of in addition to their day job. So I'm wondering, like, how do you handle a lot of change work falls into that category? We have to do that. So how do you handle getting those people on board? And connected with that is like, how are you creating the social capital so that the people do pick up the phone, but they don't just pick up the phone, they pick up the phone to Chris and say yes?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that really articulating a compelling vision, you know, really being able to say to people, this is what needs to get done, and this is why we need to do it, and this is the impact it's going to have. You know, people vote with their feet. If you don't give a compelling story, people will just end up not taking your call in the future, you know. But if I can give people a compelling story that really articulates this is why it's important to do it, you know, and using as an example, you know, there are women in our organization, and I'm sure multiple organizations, who have been mistreated in certain ways. And just me using examples like, how do you think it feels when, no matter what seniority of the organization a woman is, they always being asked, would you mind, Shannon, taking the minutes in this meeting? You know, why can't I ask Justin? And just say, do you know how humiliating that can feel, even if your customer's in the room? And just being able to articulate the impact of our actions and why we need to change, I find is compelling, and it's brought people on my side, I've found.
I love the interconnection between your two skills, because what you come back to is it's the effective communication that paints the picture with the deep understanding that gets people to feel seen, it sounds like, and come on Chris's journey of creating change.
Yeah, I love, you know, letting people understand why they need to get on the bus. And nobody's going to get on that bus or that train or that plane unless they know where it's going. And I like to make sure I let people know where I'm going and why, and really invite them into the why to say, this is why you can come. And this is the benefit of just you, the community, the organization, of you coming along this journey.
I'm wondering if you have a piece of advice for our listeners, because communication, and I love that you brought effective communication in, going back to that one, because like my personal experience, and I get a lot of stories from people that I'm talking to, is part of the challenge of this work is the words, or like the fear that people have about saying the wrong thing or stepping into it. And I'm wondering if you have advice for people who are like, oh, I want to lean in. How do I overcome that fear? How do I become an effective communicator to support the effort?
Well, I don't know if I've nailed the effective communication part. I've put my foot in my mouth many times saying the wrong thing. But I feel that just if people can understand that you have genuine motives, if I make a mistake and say the wrong thing, I will apologize. If I realize, I will apologize. And for anyone that listens to this podcast, if you hear me say the wrong thing and I don't realize, please feel welcome to pull me up. And you've got to be approachable. You've got to let people be able to come to you and say, hey, you made a mistake. You referred to me as A or B, and that's not how I identify. Could you readjust? And I find that I really do put myself out there in terms of, hey, I am not an expert. Every day is a school day. Please, if I make a mistake, call it out and let me learn. Please teach me. Community, teach me, please.
I love the story that you told me. I don't know if you want to share it here about the school trip that you did and how that played out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I forgot I told you. I was presenting to an audience of children. I think they were around 14, 15, and we did a bit of a Q&A session. And during this Q&A session, an individual put up their hand, and I said, lean forward. I said, yes, sir. And they asked their question, and I heard some children giggling at the back of the classroom. And I kind of quickly realized, actually, how do I know how this person identifies, whether they identify as male or female? I don't know. I didn't ask the question. And I realized that we moved on, but I was very uncomfortable. And I thought, let me use this as a teachable moment. So at the end, I said to everybody, children in the room, I said, everybody makes mistakes, but the biggest mistake is not to own up to it and acknowledge it. And I would like to acknowledge and apologize to an individual in the room today who I referred to as sir. I didn't have their permission to do that. And we make mistakes. I'm really sorry. And, please forgive me. And whilst I can say that example, I'll give you another example of just yesterday. I was speaking to an employee of mine in a wheelchair, and I was asking them about their dog and how their dog is, and what do they do at the weekend. And I said, did you walk the dog? And then I was like, I'm sorry. And she said, Chris, it's the dog walks. I'm in, and it became something to laugh about. But every day I know I'm probably making a mistake, and there's this natural way that we communicate that we just need to renew our mind and really re-educate ourselves. So yeah, give the community permission to pull you up, and I feel that serves me well.
I'm so grateful to you for sharing those examples, right? Because it is like we won't know, we will make mistakes, but it's the being able to, in that situation, even it doesn't always feel comfortable, but as much as we can right then and there, like catch ourselves and ask the question even. So thank you for your humility and modeling that leadership. All right, final question for me, then we'll get to the rapid fire. What is your biggest challenge as a Catalyst leader now, especially in this space?
Biggest, I guess, is resistance to change, right? Who likes change? Nobody likes change. Nobody, it can be hard to get used to. So I would call out the resistance to change. You can have some serious people that have been in the organizations for a very long time, and they can be very senior, and there's some long-standing cultural norms and practices that it's just really hard for them to get out of. And that resistance to change is the biggest thing that we need to combat. That inertia, that whole thing of this is the way that we've always done it.
Yeah,
that would be the definition of insanity. If you keep doing the same thing, you expect a different result. It's not going to quite happen. So that is the biggest, I would say.
Well, hopefully you can find the catalyst in your community and your network to help you, melt that frozen tundra in the middle. So good luck with that. All right, Justin, over to you. Rapid fire.
Yes, Chris, thank you so much for this today. And I think we have a couple questions lined up, and I think it's really to evoke a bit of personality of Catalyst and how we are similar but also different. And so it's a fun part of this podcast to be able to talk about these things as well. So one thing that we were curious about is something that you do to be ready for a big meeting, maybe a big presentation, or when you're kind of broaching a big idea. How do you get prepared for that?
Yes, exactly what you said. Prepare. Benjamin Franklin said, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. For me, I have to rehearse and I have to prepare, even for this. This is a big meeting for me. I had to prepare. I had to get my head straight and kind of jot some notes down, So for me, there's a whole preparation of whether it's preparing the agenda, whether it's reviewing meeting materials, whether it's practicing this presenting. Sometimes I might practice in front of a mirror and look at my facial expressions, whether it's preparing questions and talking points and making sure I'm rested for whatever it is that I'm going to do, because just having back-to-back meetings saps your energy as well. So I really do believe in preparing.
Yeah, I really hear the intentionality there, especially around getting sleep and being hydrated, those types of things, and how important those can be, and how those sometimes get left behind during the busyness. So thanks for adding those pieces in as well. All right, next question is favorite way to spend a free day.
Favorite way for me is just to chill in front of the television, Netflix, and chill, and me and my family, we really enjoy, if we really get a free day, we love to just start watching the Marvel Universe movies from start to finish in chronological order, from Iron Man all the way through to Black Panther. But to be honest, it takes about 3 days to do it now. There's so many of them.
Yes. And what's your favorite, if you had to pick one of the Marvel movies?
I'm biased. Black Panther, the first one, is my favorite, but yeah. I see myself as the original Black Panther. So nice. I didn't say that. Yes. I didn't say that out loud. I've just thought it. Hopefully you did hear that.
Right. No, yeah, I resonate. All right. Third question, favorite famous catalyst, alive or dead, and why?
I would say Rosa Parks, right? I think Rosa Parks just making a decision one day to say, I've had enough, and sometimes I feel communities and individuals are so complicit in their actions in terms of doing nothing, that sometimes is acceptance of that norm. And we need to challenge that norm. And Rosa Parks certainly challenged that norm all the way to seeing herself in prison. And it's just, celebrating her courage and commitment in the face of adversity. I'm just like, if I can be a little bit like her, then I'll be a better man today.
Yeah, and I think what we're also curious too to know is, like, as we talk about this, is there any call for action that you'd like to share for listeners?
Yeah, I think just reflect on your role as a catalyst for change. What are you doing, and are you doing it well? And ask other people. Ask other people if you're doing really well on this change curve, and lead with intentionality. Be purposeful and be really inclusive. Don't leave anybody out. Try and really bring everybody in, and develop essential skills such as we mentioned already: effective communication and collaboration. If you're weak in these areas, and your colleagues, your cabinet of people, your coalition, people that you trust are telling you that you're weak in these areas, go to them and ask them, then strengthening those areas, build relationships with stakeholders, and really drive progress by being totally inclusive with an equitable mindset for all.
Well, thank you, Chris. We're excited to continue to watch you as you continue to bring the real energy as you just shared. And thank you for sharing your story with us, and a lot of the learnings as well. I'm excited to even go back and listen to and re-listen and gain more insight from what you shared. And I think the community will find a lot of wisdom and insight there as well. So thank you for sharing that today. So thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about how to accelerate positive change, go to our website at catalystconstellations.com.
And be sure to check out our book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, The Catalyst Guide to Living Well. And if you have other catalysts in your life, hit the share button and send a link their way.